Okay, so I've got all my pieces here. We're just going to do just a quick little setup to see where everything is. It's always a good idea to label your pieces before you get going too far. Now notice that when I set my top or my side pieces like this, they don't meet at the corners. Remember, these are going to line up with the finger joint, and they'll actually sit here and here. So we're going to cut those finger joints next. This is pretty straight lumber, but like if we had something with knots or defects in it, we'd want to identify which is our inside and which is our outside. We're going to go ahead and do that anyway on this because as we start making cuts, we want to keep track of where everything is. So this will be our top, this will be our bottom. Make sure you write lightly in pencil because this is soft wood, it will dent. All right, and this will be our front. And I'll draw an arrow, so the arrow will always be up. This is outside. This will be our back. Arrow going up, outside. This will be right. Arrow going up, this is the outside. And this will be left. Okay, and this makes a difference when we do our finger joints. We don't need these two pieces right now. We do need these four, and I'm going to bring these two just to get us started. Before we go over, I do want to look at my drawing really quick because it's important, and we'll start with the front, to notice the finger positions. So what we're going to have is our fingers are roughly going to do this. It's going to make two indents. It's long on the top and the bottom, so the top part is going to go all the way out. The bottom finger will go all the way out, and we'll have two pieces that will be cut out, so it'll look roughly like that. When we do the side, it's going to be exactly the opposite. So where the front goes long, the side will go short, and that piece will cut out. This will be my long piece, and this piece will cut out. And again, right here, this piece will cut out. So we want to make sure we do our setup right on the machine when we get over there. So let's get over it. Let's make ourselves a couple of quick finger joints and see if we can't make this work. Over here we have our beautiful Pantorouter. We've stolen a clamp off of the CNC machine, I see. So we'll want to do a couple of things here. First, we want to make sure our fence is set up even with the bit. So to do that, I'm just going to take one of my blocks of wood, stick it out a little bit so that it's even with the router bit. We'll grab one of our clamps and hold that into place. Make sure you're not too aggressive with the clamps or you will leave a mark. All right, so we're going to set that there. We're going to set our depth down here. So we loosen both of these. When these are loose, the carriage can go back and forth. So I don't want that to hit the table, so I'll hold it back a little bit right there, maybe a quarter or half an inch, not too far. And then we'll lock these back in. Okay, and that carriage shouldn't be moving at all. There's no reason for that to move. Want it nice and firm in there. Want to make sure that the carriage can go the router bit can go all the way up and down below the work. To do that, this little screw right here and this bracket should be engaged with this. So the template should be all the way down. Make sure that's tight. And then looks like somebody set this up pretty close. We're going to switch the fingers on this. So we've got our patented finger design here, and we're just going to offset which fingers we're doing. So this jig is set up for an 1/8 inch fingers, or sorry, 1/4 inch fingers. We're doing 1/2 inch fingers, which means we have to do every other finger. So we'll go like that. Now we'll bring this back over. Make sure that's not too far in. Right there, just engaging the fingers. Okay, and we're going to adjust our fence position to match. So what I need to do is I need to have this block hit right exactly on my router bit. So I'm using my ears to tell me that's just barely touching that. We're going to lift that up a little bit and make sure. Side note, don't touch that router bit, not even a little bit. It's kind of healed, but right there, I just brushed that thing the other day and it ripped right into my fingers. Okay, so this is going to be right there. Now remember, on our front, we want that first piece to be long. So we want to make sure that that's my first cut right there. It's not going to cut off that long finger right there. And we're going to take one of our scrap blocks here, and we need to do one other thing. We need to measure how far out that needs to go. Okay, we want to use our depth gauge here, and what we're going to do is tighten that just a touch. We want to bring this down so that it's exactly the thickness of our board. And then we're going to turn and we're going to mark the inside of that. So we'll use our 2 sample blocks. Again, make sure that's on the inside because we don't want that mark to show. This goes back in the box when we're done. And now I'm going to bring this down, rest this right on that edge, and clamp it down. Another thing that's handy to do is to have a stop block that we can use so that we can do repeated cuts. So I know that my second block will be the same length as this. And I'll show you why I'm leaving a gap there in just a second. All right, so I've got this set up. It's not going to cut off the end. We're going to move it out of the way here. And we're going to go ahead and plug ourselves in. Make sure everything's out of the way. Okay. Power's on. Okay, so you notice I started before and after. I just wanted to see how close I was to centered, and I noticed on both ends it didn't cut anything out, so I know my piece is perfectly aligned. Okay, so now what I need to do, oh, I didn't want to undo that. Got a little carried away there. Fortunately, my piece is still in place. Okay, I got my stop block still there. Take this piece out, and now I've got my other scrap board right here. We're going to set that in, but the problem is if I cut that exactly the same, these 2 pieces won't fit together. So I need this piece that I have cut, make sure it's the same thickness, and it's not. So what I'm going to do is use this board right here, which is the same exact thickness as my board. Nope, it's a 1/2 inch. And we're going to set that right there, or I can just go to the table saw and I can cut a board at a 1/2 inch. But since I've got this and it's already a 1/2 inch, it's pretty handy. So what this is doing is it's offsetting the board by a 1/2 inch. So we can come in, and that should make my fingers just perfect. All right, so same thing, only this time we're doing a side cut. Let's make sure we did it right. And boys and girls, this is why we practice on a scrap first. So I'm trying to decide, looks like my piece moved on me. So we're going to bring this over and set it down. Fortunately, this wasn't my final box piece, but now that we know that this is a mistake we can make, we're going to fix that. I want that right on that line. Okay, I shouldn't have taken this out. Since I'm only doing one more, we're going to leave that in place. Okay, I've got my router bit off of the work. Turn it on. Okay. So we have just a little bit of a feather right there. If I'm really careful, I can break that off. Okay, so now if I take my 2 practice pieces, remember inside is the line, and they lock in just like that. Now it's got a little bit of looseness to it. So somewhere along the way, I probably got some slack in here. Maybe I was pushed forward and back. So what we want to do to prevent this from happening, because these should be exactly the same size as the router bit. So hold it forward against the finger, because in here, even this, you can see that I've got a little bit of slack. So just hold it either forward or backward against the finger when you're going up and down, and that'll help prevent this slack from happening right here. Okay, but we've got, looks like a joint that works. Okay, I've got my front with the long finger and my side with the short fingers, and they're going to lock together just like that. So now we can set up with the real thing. Okay, I've got my thickness gauge. I'm going to set this up one more time. Double check that set. This is the outside, so I'm going to mark the inside. I only need to do this on the first one, and this time I'm going to remember not to remove my stop block. Okay, so we'll set that down there. Set my line right at the bit. If anything, we want these just a touch too long. It's easier to have the fingers sticking out a little farther than to have them too short. So we'll cut just a little bit like that. Set that there. Set my stop block, and if you'll do me a favor and remind me not to undo this one this time, make life a whole lot easier. Okay. Once we're set up, this is going to be pretty quick. Okay, here's another thing too. We want to make sure that the top edge, the same edge, is always against the fence. I don't want to rotate it this way because if there's any offset at all here, then my box will be crooked. I'd rather have the entire thing shift like this than to shift like this. So keeping the top edge here, the only way to do that is to flip it this way. Since we've got our stop block there, I no longer need to see how thick this is. It's going to be the same as what it was on the other side. Okay, we're on the fence, we're on the stop block, and we'll do one more cut. All right, so when we did this, we had the bottom edge on the fence, so we're going to keep the bottom edge on the fence. So that's how it came off, so I want to have this aligned the same way. Okay, one more time, got my stop block in place. All right, so the fronts are done, and you can see if we'd done the side the same way, we'd have this weird offset. It still has a lot of slop to it. I wonder what's happening here. We'll have to look into that. All right, so we've got our right and our left side. Okay, these aren't marked since my block is set for the 6-inch piece. I'm going to need to remark my thickness. I've already set this, but it's always a good idea to double check. Right there, we're right on. There's the outside. We want to mark the inside. There's that. Okay, we'll come back over here. And we don't need to also remember to put our 1/2-inch spacer block in. We'll set that right there so it's on the line. And we'll set our stop block. And here we go. So you can see we're a little bit out of alignment. We'll have to clean that up when we're finished with the project. It's about a 64th of an inch there. Okay, remember the bottom edge stays on the fence. One more time. You can see we got some grain tear out there, so we'll probably want to slow down a little bit on this pass. Did you catch what I did there? Forgot my spacer. I was going to cut that in the wrong place. When in doubt, check it again, measure twice, cut once. Try this again. All right, so we've got our 4 pieces. I'm going to keep my 2 scrap pieces with me just for a good measure. And we'll come back over here. So now we can actually pre-assemble our box. There's my back, front, left, and right. Okay, so that fits pretty well right there. Once we put some glue on that, that'll hold pretty nicely. You can see there's a little bit of an offset right here. So we may have to do some sanding when we get done, but it's still going to look pretty nice.